It's time for the main event. It's Theshoeshine.
¿Qué onda, vatos locos? It's your boy Dave, now living in the 702 for a very special Monday night Shoeshine preview of the Big Canelo Jamel Charlo preview. Joining me as always, all the way from the city of brotherly love and gloating, is Mr. Eagles himself, Philly Irish Drew Evo. ¿Qué pasa, homie?
3-0, baby.
Oh, but you know who else is 3-0? Is the Bang Bang Niner gang. And we got a very special guest for tonight for the big fight weekend in Las Vegas. None other than our boy Mario Munguia of nyfights.com. And you can also find him at Infighting Pod right here on YouTube. And it's a pleasure to have you on here, Mario. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, I really appreciate y'all asking me to come through, but I don't appreciate starting off with football talk since, I'm a Cowboys fan, and we're just going to pretend football didn't happen this week.
Oh, it was a bad week for the Cowboys.
It was bad.
When the Cardinals upset. It's so bad, Mario. Drew and I just launched our first ever football show last Wednesday. And we had a guest, none other than our friend Derek Ware, who played for the Dallas Cowboys and played.
Oh shit!
Yeah, you got to talk to him. So he comes on the show and tells us he lives in Arizona now because he last played for Arizona. He says there's no effing way that Arizona beats the Dallas Cowboys, and that all of Dallas would be at the Cardinals Stadium because the Cardinals don't have a fan base. And wow, what an upset! Drew, he's glowing over here. This weekend was shocking in football. Go ahead, Drew.
Even though an Eagles win is great, in the same week it feels even better having a Cowboys loss, especially to a bum ass team like the Cardinals.
I knew he was going to say that. But don't forget, we play up to our opponents. So when we see y'all, this year, it's going to be a different Cowboys team on the field.
Yeah, you guys, Dexter will throw another interception like he does all the time.
Hey, maybe Trey will be in by then. Who knows?
Don't worry, Mario. Drew has a habit of not making bets. So even if you wanted to wager, he won't take the wager. Drew won't take that bet, will you, Drew?
Smart man.
I tell you the truth.
Yeah.
I already got a bet with a Cowboys fan.
All right.
He's like, the Cowboys, I will.
I bet somebody always the Cowboys don't make the NFC title game.
Our boy Ryan from Las Vegas says, I had so many Cowboys fans talking smack about the Packers on Facebook. Bad karma is a bitch. But enough about football. But I do want to say, the Dolphins ass whooping was unbelievable. 70 points, Drew.
Wow.
That's not merciful. Okay, what happened to Joyce this weekend in that 3-round KO, spectacular KO finish by Zhang? That was merciful. That was like, okay, I already effed up your eye in the first encounter, and now I'm just going to knock you out. And let's get right into that story because Saturday afternoon boxing is the bomb. I love it. I can sneak in some UK fights real quick, and I want to go first with you, Mario. Was this a surprise? And I saw something that I want to bring up to you guys. I read this article that Zhang's team says they had a mole the entire time in Joyce's Las Vegas Salas's camp. They said they had the game plan. They knew exactly where he was going to be stepping to. And really, it didn't seem to matter. But now that I share that story, they say they had a mole, Drew. I'll start with you, Mario. Your thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, I don't think it was a surprise. Okay, I did think that Joyce had a better shot than the first one. I felt like the problem with this fight was that Joyce's team was saying all the right things heading into the fight that made me believe that this could be different. Unfortunately, it just feels like Joyce is always going to be that one-dimensional, and I hate using that term because I don't mean it the way it sounds, the way that we criticize fighters sometimes, but it does feel that way. Like, go back to his biggest wins, right? Dubois. He threw basically one punch that whole fight. Like, this is a guy who is really good, but he's not a guy who makes adjustments. He's not a guy who goes out there and can, methodically get through a fight, change tempo, change pace, give different looks. Like, I don't know how many baseball fans are out there, but, you got to throw change ups. You got to throw curveballs, sliders. You got to mix it up out there. Joyce always feels like he's in the same tempo with the same plan. And listen, I did not hear about them having a mole in Salas's camp. I'm sure Salas isn't going to appreciate, that stuff being said. But I will say this. I don't know if they needed it. Honestly, I mean, it was like you put yourself in a position of what Joe Joyce could have wanted to do different in that fight. And for the love of, for all credit and respect to him as a fighter getting in there, but he just couldn't accomplish it. And I think this is going to be one of those fighters who will always have his number. It's like a Pacquiao Marquez type of thing.
Absolutely, Drew. He came in 20 pounds heavier than the first fight. Was that the first mistake the guy made too?
I kind of thought they both made that mistake in coming in heavier and everything, but it will probably be more of a mistake for Zhang because of his suspect gas tank, as everybody was worried about. But turned out not to be. It turned out to be Joyce's undoing because of his movement and everything. But I looked at it like this. Joyce's defense is really just him being a pressure fighter or taking shots to the face, knowing that of his chin, and being able to wear a guy down and stop you and everything. But when a guy can take your punches and it can develop a game plan and constantly hit you, your face doesn't hold up and everything. In the first fight, his eye didn't hold up, and he wound up stopping it. But I said this was going to end in the same way. It was going to be a stoppage. I had a late stoppage because I'm being generous. I didn't think Joyce was going to beat Zhang at all. Because you're 36, 37, and you expect to come up and learn something new at this age? No. Old dogs don't learn new tricks at that age anymore. It was going to be more of the same fight. Zhang was going to go with the left, but I think they're having a little bit of an adjustment and to figure out ways how to sneak in something else. And that's what happened. He faked with the left, and he bit on it, and he went and he got the right hand in. That was the KO shot. Never seen it, and the ones that hurt the most, punches you don't see coming.
Yep. Well said,
Mario. He's known. Joe Joyce was known as having one of the highest outputs of all heavyweight boxers, and I have to give the guy credit because heavyweights are generally they've been very inactive recently, right? So I give this guy tremendous credit for coming in and wanting and demanding a rematch, saying he's going to do much better. But where's the output now that Zhang stop that myth that he's this just nonstop,
Juggernaut.
Yeah, we didn't see any of that in this second fight, did we?
Yeah, no, we didn't. And not only didn't we, I think that we saw a glimpse into the 38-year-old. The guy who has been a fighter for some time now. And listen, you could talk about, how many fights he's had or hasn't had, and, the damage that he's taken or hasn't taken. It really doesn't matter. Father Time is not kind to athletes. It don't matter if you're, playing tennis, football, baseball, but boxing of all the sports is so tough because of the anaerobic aspects that go into it. The strength that goes into it, the stamina, all the different facets of athleticism that you see, boxers, what they do in the ring, it's similar to what a lineman and a linebacker and a cornerback and a running back and a quarterback all do, in the span of a game. Like, it's a thinking man's type of sport. That's why they call it the sweet science. And if you're not able to go out there and switch game plans or be methodical or do the things that essentially give your opponents different looks, you're not going to be able to capitalize. And at the end of the day, above all else, if you can be that guy who's constantly in your fighter's face, who's constantly throwing punches, whether they're barrages, whether you're picking your shots, whether they're 1-2s, whether it's a single jab, kind of like we saw in the Dubois fight, it doesn't matter. As long as you're presenting that, you always have a chance. But the moment that you deviate from that game plan and you don't have something that's going to negate what Zhang does best, that's it. The fight's over. And so again, I think it goes back to this whole point where it might not be that Joyce should retire or his career is over. He'll never get another win or another big fight. It might just be that he can't beat Zhang, you know? And to be honest with you, I don't know how many guys will. Like, you know, the AJs of the world and all that, I don't know. But this guy is a very weird fighter to fight.
Absolutely. And I got my boy in here, Jose El Compita says, Zhang versus Wilder would be a great fight. Well, because we know that Deontay Wilder can nullify everything with that right hand, and that Zalil Zhang can do that with his left hand. So we're left with that question mark. So we think it'd be a good fight. On paper, it absolutely sounds like a good paper. But, Drew, he's been very inactive. Now, the IBF has Hrgovic, who Zalil Zhang had a very hotly contested fight, one that I think Zalil Zhang should have walked away with the win. IBF has him ranked ahead. So it looks like if they go by the standards of the sanctioning bodies, Hrgovic is first in line for a Usyk opportunity. But that all hangs, you know, potentially if Tyson Fury decides to fight for the, you know, undisputed, you know, these guys will just have to wait. I don't know how that sits well with you, Drew. Do you have Zhang now as a top 5 heavyweight?
I have him number 3.
Damn.
Like, I'll be honest, I look at it like this. I can't see how you can put AJ or Deontay Wilder above Zhang right now. I just don't see it. Like, if you look at it, the only top 10, maybe top 10, maybe top 5 heavyweight Deontay Wilder's ever fought was Tyson Fury. AJ, you can speak about it, but he's lost 3 out of his last 6 fights. 2 of them to Usyk, 1 of them to Andy Ruiz. So AJ hasn't looked spectacular at all. He looked like shit in his last 2 fights. And I look at it like this. Zalil Zhang brutally KOs AJ right now.
Whoa.
Zalil Zhang, I think, beats Deontay Wilder right now.
Whoa.
I think if you look at it like this, the only thing that Wilder will have is his right hand equalizer. Mm-hmm. And to see how much Deontay Wilder boxing-wise has improved. I mean, I don't know if he's going to be able to compete with Zhang for a fight like that. A guy that's technical, a guy that's like a southpaw, a guy that can really bang with the best of them, and has really knocked out a guy that had an iron chin and enjoyed Joyce. And then if you look at it, Joyce, you can still match him up with AJ. People can say that's a 50-50 fight now. I would still favor Joyce in that fight against AJ. I think AJ is almost damaged goods. Because if you look at it like this right now, Zhang will beat mostly everybody in this division except for Usyk and Fury. Right now, I will put it as he'll beat anybody in this division except Usyk and Fury. And if you look at it, my number 4 will be Wilder. My number 5, I will put Andy Ruiz as my number 5 heavyweight.
Well, I like that you put him at 5.
AJ is my number 6 heavyweight. And people are going to say, oh, you're just hating on AJ. No, I'm not. Tell you the truth. What has AJ done for me lately? He struggled against Jermaine Franklin that arguably should have got the nod against Dillian Whyte in the UK. And he got hit with a couple of good counter shots by Franklin. He looked like shit against Robert Helenius for 6 rounds until he got a KO. And then they're trying to blame him out. Oh, Robert Helenius had tested positive for PEDs and everything. That's why he probably struggled against Robert Helenius. When Wilder barely broke a sweat and barely got hit by him and knocked him out in a round with 1 punch. So if we're looking at this right now, my top 5 heavyweights are Fury, Usyk, Zhang, Wilder, and Ruiz.
Mario, we got somebody in the chat. Our boy, let's see, Pablo Boxiano says that he thinks Zalil Zhang versus Ruiz would be a very compelling fight. With Zalil Zhang on the cusp of international superstardom, we saw Andy Ruiz do the unthinkable and take up that fight against AJ and go to Saudi Arabia. We've seen Andy Ruiz go down south to take on Parker, right? Would Andy Ruiz, could it be conceivable to you? He's looking for a big fight. He's looking for a big payday, I'm sure. But how about Zhang and Andy Ruiz in China?
I would absolutely love it. I cannot see Andy Ruiz taking that fight, and only because look, he had his shot to fight Wilder, and I don't want to get into like the minutia of what was offered and what should have been offered and all that. Let's just leave that off the table. To ask the question plain and simple, would he get more money to fight Zhang than he would to fight Wilder? Now in China, I don't know. I don't know what that market is like, and if it would be enough to make up for the lacking that you have from going from Wilder to Zhang in terms of United States popularity, international, whatever. That said, though, I think what you have is a very interesting fight there. If somebody could force the hand in terms of belts, but at the same time, I don't know if Ruiz is even interested in the belts. Listen, bottom line, that's a great suggestion. And I think it's a better fight to think about than it is a fight to hope and wait for, because Ruiz seems to be at this stage in his career realizing that, he needs to get those big, huge fights in. The heavyweight division is tied up in this really weird place where we're waiting for these huge fights like Usyk and Fury and Wilder and AJ. And so you have all these other guys out in the cusp. Did Zhang do enough to beat Joyce twice in a row on the stage to lure, and let's call a spade, the heavyweight Mexican is a guy who's going to draw. You're going to get pay-per-view numbers. You're going to get attendance. You're going to get all those things. You're going to get the publicity of it. Former champion, Andrew all Ruiz. Things. Exactly. Is it enough to lure him as the A side? I don't think so. He's still the A side in that fight. So.
Yeah, that would be kind of a funny looking fight, Andrew Ruiz, as far as
hell yeah.
Listen, guys, there's someone in the chat. I appreciate a twisted sense of humor here. White Trash Mexican with Louis C.K. as his profile pic says, hilarious. Zhang is the truth. And by the way, one thing you guys don't know, but Mario tells me you do stand-up, or you're working on your stand-up career. And that's awesome, because I tried to dabble in, before COVID, I tried to dabble in open mic comedy. I think we had a conversation about it.
Yeah.
And this Saturday, all my good friends are coming for Skank Fest Festival, which is the biggest comedy festival, one of the biggest in Las Vegas. And guys, I know it's Canelo fight weekend. I know. But last year, Mario, the biggest video on my channel is Skank Fest.
Really?
Comedians boxing each other right here. 21,000 views. Who is this? Dylan versus Paco. And I'm going to be there on Saturday to make sure I record all these comedian fights.
At Skankfest?
At Skankfest.
Oh, man, you're so lucky, bro. That's huge.
Now, usually,
I wish I could be there.
Bro, I don't usually support YouTube fights and like the whole, like, I didn't really, like most of us hardcore boxing fans, I'm not into it. But this stuff, even without headgear, I shouldn't be accepting of this. It's just too much. It's just too much of a good time. Comedians beating the shit out of each other who have a beef. I love it. I'll be there Saturday on Fremont Street. I'll definitely be there, guys. So I probably might even live stream and get some high def video of that.
I'm tuned into Theshoeshine all weekend, bro. Are you kidding? You're in Vegas.
But Ed, you might be watching the pay-per-view, though.
Everyone's going to be at the
pay-per-view. Yeah, it's a good time. And definitely maybe next year you might want to come down here. I know you've laced up the gloves. I know you've laced up the gloves, right?
I have laced up the gloves, yeah.
You might,
those are the gloves I won with right there.
There you go. You might be on that next year. You get your stand-up comedy game right. Let them know.
Hey, I like the way you think right there, Theshoeshine.
I'm ready to fight.
I like the way you think.
Shit, I'll be in Mario's corner.
You want to know who's really thinking about this all Zhang shit and everything, and he's like, oh God, I can't believe I dropped this guy. Eddie Horn. Horn used to promote Zhang, and now he dropped him after that draw, after the Horgative fight. He dropped him, and he got the fight with Joyce.
Right.
He beat Joyce twice. Now Frank Warner signed him to a promotional contract. So that big money fight in China that Eddie Hearn was looking forward to for AJ.
Mm-hmm.
Tell you the truth, if that fight was to happen, it benefits Queensberry more because they'll make the brunt of the cash because Zhang is promoted by Queensberry now.
Right.
And so these big fights that can happen in China with Zhang and everything, Frank's gonna benefit from that shit now. And Eddie Hearn, another bad decision he made, just like his card this past weekend.
Shout out to everybody joining us in the chat. I appreciate you guys. Mario appreciates you. Drew, I appreciate you. Make sure you hit that like. Let's get to 20 likes right now. And speaking of of gambling in Las Vegas, Drew, Mario, the Wynn has their own casino in Macau. And just thinking about it, it's 5 times the size of the one in Las Vegas. Everything is everything. Yeah, and Zalil Zhang is probably. Well, I don't know. Say he just matches the enormity of these casinos, right?
Well, good point. That's hilarious. Yeah, good point.
I see our boy Sin City Syndicate in here in the chat. I'm going to get this one off as we segue into Connor Benn. I have a graphic here. Speaking of football bets, I know we were talking about fantasy football just a minute ago, but some guy at Red Rock Casino this weekend parlayed 7 teams, $600 bet into a $46,216 win at Red Rock. Isn't that an awesome parlay?
That's dope.
Sin City Syndicate, you need to call in the show this Wednesday and give us the parlays, man. Tell us what to bet on this.
Take your bow, bro. Take your flowers.
All right, here it is, guys. This one might be controversial. It may not be, but I was pretty livid at the fact that Connor Benn got snuck on this DAZN card almost last minute, just kind of like under the radar, snuck on. And it's really confusing to follow the PED scandals, let alone here in our country, but how they do it with the British Boxing Board of Control. As far as I understand, he has not been technically cleared, but there was a suspension appeal pending, which gave him permission to fight in other jurisdictions, Florida being the most loosest of state sanctioning bodies. They allow bare knuckle fighting and all kinds of crazy shit. They probably allow slap boxing there too. It's probably where they host it.
I miss Florida.
They said, sure, Connor Benn could get on that. And he found himself as the co-main attraction this Saturday night on DAZN. And I want to know what you guys think here in the chat. And I'll start with you as well, Mario. But Connor Benn, did he get a PED pass as far as we know in the state of Florida?
I mean, I guess at the end, he could have gotten it in Texas. There's like a lot of different places he could have gotten it, right? I do agree with what you said, the way you characterized it. It did feel like they were kind of like sneaking him in. You know what I'm saying? Like it was like, a drum of bass under the truck or under the F-150, you know what I'm saying? You're trying to sneak across the border, and he was able to do it. You know what I'm saying? And the problem was, I think that it's like you weigh the pros and cons of what that was. Like you did it. I'm sure Connor understood what was going on. I'm sure they had a plan. I'm sure that he was never sneaking on in him. For him, he knew what it was going to happen. He knew when he was going to fight. He was continuously getting ready, but ultimately he has this huge cloud over his head. He knows that any boxing fan in the building is going to have, a nasty thing to say or, you know what I'm saying? Like they're not on his side. They're not vibing with him. He's not in front of, some friendly fans. He's in front of people who either had no idea who he was or knew exactly who he was and either hated him or wanted nothing to do with him or was just even pissed to see him fighting. I thought he struggled, or not struggled. Struggle's a weird word. I thought that he didn't perform in the ring in a manner that was able to upstage everything he's got going on in the background. You get what I'm saying? Like, he could have gone out there, performed and performed in a way that everybody says like, damn, man, he's got all that shit going on. But imagine him fighting fucking Boots. Or damn, imagine him in Crawford, bro. Like, nobody's saying that. I used to imagine that.
Oh, absolutely.
I used to also. Me too.
Like, him and Boots, we talked about it repeatedly here. I needed to see him versus Virgil Ortiz. I needed to see him against Boots. The young lions at welterweight, and then this happened. This derailment of momentum. But let's address the elephant in the room, Drew, because he didn't fight at welterweight. He's aiming to fight at 160 pounds with that fight that got canceled because of the PED. So he moved up to 154, and in comes this unknown Sinaloan fighter. But shout out to all the Mexico fighters that always come to spoil a perfect, what should have been a showcase.
Especially UK fighters.
Yeah. This guy from Sinaloa fought in the classic Mexican fashion, and Conor Benn could really not hurt him, Drew. And is that going to be a recipe for disaster as he aims to move to higher weight classes?
Good question.
Well, what can I say? Conor Benn should have never been on this card, period. That's first of all. Like, second of all, he looked like shit on it. Like, he couldn't hurt the fucking dude. And, like, to be honest, the one thing that I don't like is this whole saga of Conor Benn being caught on the juice, and then you have Eddie Hearn speaking up for clean boxing, and then when his box is in the center of it, he's like, "Oh, that's the worst sanctioning thing. Like, VADA's the worst sanctioning fee and everything." And a couple of days ago, he was promoting it as the best thing.
Yeah, and I believe he picked them. And then they say that the second sample, I don't know. I'm so confused with the second sample, what they used to try to side skirt the issue, right? The second sample.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing about that. First of all, why would you have a card in Orlando, Florida? It's not a big boxing town. And and I don't understand Matchroom's idea of thinking on how to build your American market and everything. I understand you don't have the fighters, the showcase, because tell you the truth, the only two guys you showcase are Canelo, which he's no longer with you because he signed with PBC, and AJ, which he's on his way out because nobody gives a flying fuck about him anymore. And now, when you're trying to sign other guys, they turn out to be bad signings. Conor Benn, with this whole thing, it has not planned out. Nobody really knows him here. If you're not a hardcore boxing fan, no one knows him here. When they figure out who he is, they say, "Oh, he's a cheat. He's a drug cheat." So, like, this card all around was an offer card. What else to do with Matchroom anymore? That's all they put on is subpar cards anymore.
We had several people right here in this chat that seem to agree with you, Drew. Chicano Prophet says Benn's too small for 154. I have to ask you guys, he looked like a menacing beast at 147 pounds, but suddenly against someone 6 feet tall, 6'1", and shit, Fundora's still in the 154-pound division. There's going to be freak show fighters. Is he too small for you, Mario, at 154, or could it be he's off the clomiphene and just doesn't look so buff anymore? I mean, I don't know.
It could be a lot of things. I think ultimately what it is his time at 147 just wasn't resonated yet. Like, he didn't get to fight anybody, in my opinion, at 147 that really would have given him the kind of resistance to be able to say, okay, well, you have the skill set. Like, the whole point when like Pacquiao moves up or Shakur or Inoue or these guys who are pound for pound greats, right? They do it because they've accomplished something and then they're moving on. They've shown that their skill set is at such a level that they're able to take the disadvantage of being a smaller guy or fighting in a smaller weight class, move up and acclimate. And see, so that's the point right there that I want to make, right? Because I hear you, Drew. I hear what you're saying, but I think part of Conor not being known helps him in the sense that if American fight fans get the chance to see him, if Eddie's able to turn this whole ship around, right? Conor can be somebody that fans look at as an opponent or a villain. He can make himself a star. Look, dude, he could be the Russian from Rocky, where all the casual fans are being told by hardcore fans, oh, he's a drug cheat. Oh, I want to see my American fighter knock that cheater out. I want to see Terrence Crawford, Jermell Charlo, whoever these guys at 154, 160, whatever, Tim Tszyu, all these guys. I want to see these guys beat it. And the problem is Conor Benn's not leaning into being the bad guy. He's just saying things that make him a bad guy, right? Lean into that shit. Look what Devin's done. Devin has taken that role and he cemented it. Oh, you thought I lost to Lomachenko? Well, F you, F your whole Twitter, F all of y'all people. I'm going to be the bad guy. And now guess what? People talk about him more today than they ever did when he was the good guy, right? And so if you're Conor Benn, you put yourself in a position where, you know, hopefully you can get a couple fights in and you know, cement yourself past this and be the villain, be anything. You can get your career back. I don't think that forcing yourself into fights where you're trying to acclimate on the run, it's going to help. What did you gain out of Saturday night? What did you gain out of it? Do you think that you gained enough that it puts you in a position to know exactly what you're going to get against a Eubank? Because I don't.
I'll be honest. I think Eubanks knocks them out. I'll tell you the truth. Conor Benn
knocks them out.
I think Conor Benn's skill set is awful. I don't think he has a lot of skills, Conor Benn. Like, if you look at it, I think Eubanks knocks him out. Because
he looked great in his last fight.
Yeah, he did. But I think Conor Benn's skill set is horrible. I don't think he's a good fighter at all.
Wow.
And for people to think that he's good at as they think he is, I don't know what they're looking at. They're freaking delusional, no idiots.
Damn,
wow,
Drew.
Really, Drew?
I think he's got a decent skill set. I think he has a decent skill set.
I thought he looked good, whether it was illegal drugs or not. I don't know. I can't say that. But I think what he showed before.
All the guys that he's calling out, or these fought or semi-retired. Like, this guy's fighting Chris Algier that hasn't fought in maybe 2.5 years. Then he tries to call a retired Devin Alexander out after knocking out Algieri. I'm like, then he tries to bring out Amir Khan out of retirement.
Well, listen.
And Cal Brook. Like, dude, why about one of these young lions, dude? Or these, come on.
I don't think that bad of his skill set, Drew. But I do want to comment on what you said, because I know both of you guys are big WWE fans. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
And what you brought up about Conor Benn playing the heel, playing the bad guy, playing the role, which Floyd Mayweather at his peak he just mastered it, right? And he's teaching everybody these roles. And Adrian Broner even was very good at it. With 100%. Conor Benn speaking almost, you guys in the chat know that follow the sport of boxing, he speaks nearly perfect Spanish, that he could use that in a super fight against a Mexican opponent and use that to play. Point. You know, the way Oscar De La Hoya had an amazing lead up in his fight against a Nicaraguan fighter who enjoyed being the bad guy. I mean, Mayorga was the perfect villain. He was the perfect villain. If Conor Benn could embrace that, I could see himself getting in a position for some super fights, even against. Well, I mean, it's hard to think of him fighting some PBC fighters because of going across the board, but
sure,
we'll get into some of the worthy opponents at 154, like Jesus Ramos Jr., who's the ultimate nice guy.
Yes,
it could work, right? Maybe he needs that. Maybe he needs a heel. Something like that could work in his favor.
Yeah.
Please don't get that boy killed by Jesus Ramos. Please do not.
Here we go, Drew. Here's a good opponent for him.
Destroys him inside 5.
Here's a good opponent for Conor Benn, who today I read says if he cannot get this super fight with Eubanks, that he's willing to go back to 147, where he looked very good, very strong. And that's someone from Philadelphia who also is very charismatic, very good behind the mic, Blair the Flare Cobbs, a guy who really knows about the wrestling business, Drew. I think perhaps maybe he'd knock him out quickly, but that's a fight that maybe Conor Benn could practice this character.
You know,
yeah, for sure.
It'll probably be entertaining for as long as it lasts. I won't be surprised if Blair wins the fight. I wouldn't be surprised if Conor wins the fight.
You wouldn't?
Like, I'll be honest with you. I kind of think Mayorga's a better fighter than both these guys.
All right.
Right now.
And that's coming from a guy that beat and that's a guy that beat Vernon Forrest twice.
Damn, Drew's hard on Conor Benn.
No process, really, wow. Dave? I think Blair the Flare. Yeah, go ahead, Drew.
Here's the thing. Blair has some type of skill, but Blair, the problem with him is he's too hype at times, and he runs into a lot of shots. Like, let's look at the Alexis Rocha fight. dude was acting hype as shit. He just kept on running into that nice right hand of Alexis Rocha, and like eventually got to him, and it eventually knocked him out. Eventually stopped the fight. Like I don't know, like Conor Benn, he's learning on the job technically because he didn't have much of an amateur career, but I just he's nothing like his dad. He's nothing like Nigel, and I said it before his career's over. He's gonna have more losses than his dad. His dad has 7 losses in his career, so he's probably gonna have 8 or 9. It depends how long he fights. Like I think after somebody really seriously kicks his ass, he might call it a career. But I don't know. Like I'm just not really a fan of him. Like because of the way of who he's trying to call out, the persona he's trying to bring, and this drug scandal that happened to be like when he got caught, people are saying, I knew it was on something. I knew it was on something. Chris, why the hell did you fight him still then? If you thought it was on something, Chris, why the hell did you fight him still? Like protect your fucking career, for crying out loud. Like
that's a big part of the conversation. That's a big part of the conversation that people haven't talked about as much.
Like I just don't understand when Chris Algieri comes out and says that, and then, like, dude, you say you knew you fight him, but why would you still fight him then?
It was the eggs. It was the eggs, says Ryan. I read into that whole theory about egg contamination, and I saw the article that WADA put out. But it turns out that they have no evidence of the contaminated eggs in the UK where he lives. So most definitely not enough clomiphene to be in the eggs there to produce that result that he yielded. So I don't know. I don't know. Clomid, by the way, is the same drug that Alberto Puello, who had the 140-pound title briefly, WBA took that belt away from him. And that's why Rolly Romero got an opportunity to become the champ the way he did, was because they acted appropriately with the same drug in his system and said, can't be the champ. They did the right thing in that situation. They said, you cannot be the champ with this test.
Well, the problem is that they don't do the same thing every time, right? That's the problem for me, is that it's
consistency.
It's consistency. Thank you. It's consistency. And the problem with the consistency is that there's a clear pattern of when they break it, and it's when it benefits the pockets. You know what I mean? It's when it benefits their bankroll. And, that's the time when this stuff seems to not matter as much. I mean, a lot of these guys have tested after the fights are over, positive. You know what I mean? Like the tests come out like after the fight's done. Like that, to me, that is one of the craziest things. I think if most casual fans or like fans of other sports were to hear those types of things that go on our sport, like they would be like stupefied. They'd be like, what are you talking? Wait, they're testing them and then they're letting them fight, and then those tests that they tested them with before the fight are coming out positive.
Weeks later.
Exactly. It's
Weeks
like
later.
It's crazy. It's crazy, bro.
It is crazy, and only in the sport of boxing.
Only in the sport of boxing.
And then here's the issue. After that, you gotta wait for a B sample to come out to see whether or not you're gonna punish the dude, or you're gonna let him keep his belt or not. And some situations, like the Oscar Valdez situation, we're not gonna strip him of the belt and everything. He's gotta go do some motivation speakings and everything to little kids. Say no to drugs, and that's include the rub on cream.
All right, I'm going to make this one fast because it's definitely hard to get guys interested in women's boxing unless, it's Michaela Mayer and Alicia Baumgartner. So I'll just make this really quick. Was Sandy Ryan robbed, in your opinion, against McCaskill? It was a very competitive fight, probably the most competitive fight of the weekend for me. Mario? Robbery?
No, not a robbery. I feel like it was a competitive fight. And listen, I shouldn't say this. Every time I've said this, I remember one time I was on, we were doing a show at the Boxing Voice, and I said this, and I think like 20 people called in just hating on me for saying what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it again. Like wrestling, okay, to be the man, you got to beat the man. And I'm not saying that fights shouldn't be scored in this even panel. Of course, that's how they should be scored evenly, right? Like if both fighters are just people and you're scoring it down the middle. but ultimately we're all fans, and we know this sport well. We know that judges are influenced by certain things. We know that judges carry into the fight their bias. How could they not? They're human beings. As much as you want to say, okay, no, this is a judge and they're supposed to just score fights. No, like, why do you think they have like lists for judge and they say, oh, he's a Democratic judge, he's a Republican judge, he's a conservative judge, he's a liberal judge? Like, everybody has their bias, right? So at the end of the day, you have to go in there and you have to beat the man. I just feel like it was a close enough fight that robbery is a tough word for me to use with that. You know what I'm saying? Especially when you look at things under those, guidelines or whatever.
True. The commentators for DAZN even had, I think I heard them vocalize their opinion that it was maybe a robbery, but what do you say?
I disagree with Mario. It is a robbery. I had a 7-3 for Ryan. I think this is the third decision that McCaskill got away with, in my opinion. I thought in the first Breakers fight, I thought Breakers came back and beat her. I thought she won the first. Here's the thing. I thought McCaskill won the first 4 rounds and didn't win a round after that. Second fight, they had McCaskill winning. I had it a draw. I think it was more of the same thing. She won the first half of the fight. Breakers won the second half of the fight. Her gas tank affected her both those fights. And then this fight, I had a 7-3 for Ryan. I think she clearly won the fight. McCaskill, like, I don't know what they look for in McCaskill, but McCaskill has a gas tank issue, in my opinion, and it has affected her
Is
last
it age?
couple of fights. It is. I think it is age, but at the same time, she hasn't had that many professional fights. She's been for a lot of 10-round fights already with Katie Taylor, 2 with Breakers, and everything. So I think this was a robbery. I think Ryan should be undisputed champion right now. I think this should be a rematch. Are we going to get a rematch? Probably not.
Yeah, Sandy, Ryan would most definitely like one. I think so too.
Yeah, for sure.
Mario, let's bring up the elephant in the room, and you mentioned the boxing voice, and Jessica McCaskill in defense of her friend, who I just mentioned, Alicia, said some things that probably was a foot in your mouth moment, the biggest one of her career. Now that she's still the champion, do you think this is going to impact her, her contract with Eddie Hearn? She's still the champ.
I think I think that whatever was going on before she even made those comments, there was already an impact. From what I have heard and what I've seen, or at least what I've heard secondhand, there were some contentious negotiations going on as far as like extensions and certain fights. And so I think that when she went on air that night, she was defending her friend, like you said, which was a big part of it. And I think B was kind of defending herself as well. I can't say what situation is playing out behind closed doors. Nobody can, but there was a clear line she was trying to draw to who she was blaming, what kinds of things she was saying. Like, I don't want to repeat them because I don't want to get in trouble. Like, I already know how many, letters got sent out specifically to McCaskill and her manager and, a few other, live streamers and podcasters like ourselves. And so, like, the whole situation was murky. Why would she have done it? Why would she have gone out of her way to do that? She's a smart girl. She has a smart team. She had to have known what those kinds of repercussions were. I think that they were very clearly, carefully placed and said to open up a dialogue, or at least in her mind, attempt to open up a dialogue that puts her in a favorable position when it comes to, negotiating and dealing with Eddie and DAZN and all those things. It didn't work out. It backfired. She went too far. So it's a murky situation there. And you already talked about the age factor. That's not on her side. I think the worst thing that could happen right now is that they derail her career. And I don't mean derail it in any sort of like political way. I just mean like not getting fights. And that's already a thing that happens in women's boxing. Like, you don't have to work hard to not have your female fighters working hard. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, so it's a catch.
Well, here's the thing. what fights are out there for it right now? Because
That's true. That's a good point.
There's not really a lot of fights. Like, you're not getting a Katie Taylor rematch because she's getting ready to fight Santel Cameron again in a rematch. You're not fighting. Nobody wants to see a Thurcia Breakers fight. Like, I Amanda Serrano, I don't see that happening either. Like, there's not. What are you gonna do? Move up and be under man, like, at a big disadvantage against a Carissa Shields? There's not really a lot of fights left for her to explore and everything, and the age factor isn't on her side. And like, what's she gonna do? Take on mandatories until she retires? And she's not gonna make shit on mandatories because probably the women that are mandatories probably are not known at all and everything. Like, the only thing that she has on her side, that she has a lot of boxers in her weight class, because anything below 160, you have a whole bunch of boxers, and a lot of them have 500 above 500 records, except for other than the ones that above 160. There's only maybe 17, and most of them have sub 500 records and everything.
Yeah.
So it's just not really a lot for McCaskill to go by right now. And the only thing that she needs to do, she needs to explore super fights. And the only fight I could see her doing is Natasha Jonas. And I think Natasha Jonas easily beats her.
Seems like the chat is getting tired of the women's boxing talk. Hey, I like Jessica McCaskill. I think
so do I.
I think I did. She definitely brought it. Actually, she exceeded my expectations. I thought that her opponent Sandy Ryan was going to walk away with this one very easily, but she lives to still remain champion. Good. Did
you score it, Theshoeshine?
You know what? I saw it. I did see it. To me, I could see it have been a draw or 7-5 Sandy Ryan.
I could have seen it being a draw too.
Yeah. Or
that's why I couldn't have it a robbery.
Ryan. Or in favor, because I think she definitely had her good moments. But let's talk about the main event, because we've got to move into Canelo Fight Week ASAP.
For sure.
Listen, guys, Hitchens is extremely talented. On the roundtable last Thursday, I said that, guys, we've already seen the beginning of Zepeda. Chon Zepeda enter gatekeeper status. When he fought Regis Prograis, the guy has been in some brutal wars. In Fight of the Year, for me, versus the Baranchek fight was brutal. Then he had a great fight against Jose Ramirez in Jose Ramirez's prime. Lord knows if Jose Ramirez is still a prime 140-pound fighter. But those kind of fights took a lot out of him. And your good colleague, our friend Lukey Boxing, I heard his podcast this weekend. Shout out to him. And he said, look, he came from the club circuit. And we all know the California club circuit, like Thompson Boxing. They put you in some hellacious fights as you go up, much like they do on Pro Box. They're doing Pro Box. You haven't heard of these guys,
Broadway,
but they're putting you in very competitive fights where you could sustain a lot of damage. Hitchens is special, Mario, but he's already acknowledging to the press media that he knows it wasn't very entertaining. Can he pull a course correction like, say, someone like Gervonta Tank Davis? I'm not Gervonta, excuse me. Shakur Stevenson. We used to say the same shit about Shakur here on our show. I think Shakur's really starting to grow into being a professional fighter and making that adjustment. Does Hitchens have that chance to do that?
I think that he does have that chance, but I wish you would have ended the question right where you ended it, because or right before you ended it, because you said it perfectly best, right? It's like Shakur has done what he has done. Like, he's starting to move in a way and operate in a way that is resemblance of a pro, a very good pro, not just a very good pro, an elite pro. And he's doing this at a time where, see, for a lot of the casual fans who've just kind of gotten into Shakur, right, they're seeing before their eyes this masterful, artist work in the ring. For the rest of us that have been watching Shakur for some time now, we know he's put on some duds, and so for Hitchinson, I think that first of all, he's a talented fighter, just absolutely great. What Shakur has that I'm not sure Hitchinson does, he has that third gear, that fourth gear. Shakur is the kind of athlete that if he was built a little different size-wise, he could have been in the fucking NFL. He could have been a basketball player. He could have played tennis. Like, he could have done anything. He's a world-class athlete.
Like Terrence Bud Crawford.
Thank you. Yes. Well said. And so when you have guys like that, they're able to be dynamic in a bunch of different ways. And so what Shakur gives up in terms of, I guess you want to call it safety or whatever, or defense, to make more exciting fights or to take more risks to gain, harder shots, to gain, angles on opponents. What he's doing there, can Hitchison do the same thing to fighters who are giving you resistance back? Not a guy like Zepeda, like you said. If he's unable to do things to guys that are essentially punching bags, it's hard for me to believe that when he gets a guy in there who's capable of angling him out, who's capable of matching speed and footwork and all those different facets that we've come to see from Hitchison, what does he do? What other gear does he have to go towards? I think that if he's not outclassing opponents, then is he even in the fight? It's like one of those kinds of scenarios where I don't know. He's got to be more exciting, man. He has to be. And I think that the more exciting he becomes, the more vulnerable he is as a fighter. And that, I can't say that for sure, obviously, but just from my assessment and seeing him work, I just don't know if he's going to be able to be exciting and undefeated.
Yeah, I got you. Drew, I'm asking you the same thing. I think Mario made a great point. For me, after round 2 or 3, I'm like, what else am I going to do on Saturday night? Because this fight is fucking boring the shit out of me. Mainly because, like he said, I couldn't see Hitchens getting into that next gear, going into that. He could beat Zepeda in first gear, and he had no problem doing that and going the distance. Can this guy, does he have a second, third gear? And will somebody like Montana Love, another strong fighter his age, because somebody like that, or Gary Antoine Russell at 140, because we know they're not going to put him in against a star like Ryan Garcia at 140 at the zone. He won't even be in the conversation. But somebody like Montana Love, you think that's a good opponent for him to test him, to take him into that next level?
Hopefully I can get this topic out the way faster than that fucking fight. So, oh man, no, this was a complete dud. I was waiting for my pillow and everything so I can get some sleep because this fight sucked. Like I don't know, man. Like, this was a guy that I guess they expected him to get out of there, and he was like playing with his food and everything. I don't
playing with his food.
I don't know what the hell he was doing. Like, dude, when are you gonna knock the dude out? Like this is embarrassing to watch. And like, dude, you're supposed to follow something up with a knockout. You're the main event, and you put on the snooze fest.
Not ready for a main event.
I don't even. I'll be honest with you. I don't know if he beats a Montana Love. I just don't know it, because here's the thing. I don't even think it's going to be a good fight. Him and Montana Love, I think it's going to be another snooze fest because of styles and everything. Like, you're going to have to hope Montana is going to be the more offensive fighter, is going to bring the fight more. And after his last fight, seeing the way it ended and everything, I just don't have confidence. Like, you gotta, I don't know what else, because it's like, I don't know what the plan is with this dude. Montana Love, is it the winner of Haney Prograis? I don't think he beats neither one of those guys.
I don't think he gets a shot at those guys if he can't start putting on entertaining fights. Just like Boo Boo Andrade had that problem not being able to catch the attention of Canelo, no matter what he did. And segueing, it's fight week, guys. It's time. Let's move into fight week, guys, because tomorrow, the Grand Arrivals live on Showtime, I believe. You can watch that on YouTube. The Grand Arrivals tomorrow at 2:30 p.m. I live here now in Vegas. I've asked for time off on Wednesday after the press conference. I'm going to be at the open workouts, trying to get some great footage for you guys, maybe live stream the open workout. You don't always have to listen to the Showtime commentators. You could just hear me. So make sure you guys tune in for that. Wednesday, it's all going down. This It's expensive, guys. $84.99. I'm not going to lie, it's an expensive pay-per-view, but there seems to be value here, and there seems to finally be an air of mystery that perhaps Jermell Charlo, who's undisputed himself, could be, dangerous to perhaps an aging, beginning to show signs of on the decline Canelo Alvarez. So I want to hear what you guys have to say. Let's look at this impressive undercard because I'll probably be at the comedy festival watching these guys fight while these young, hungry fighters want to make a name for themselves. Many of them, like you guys have heard, Frank Sanchez, heavyweight from Cuba, will be on that undercard. This one's really interesting to me, Drew. Alexander Zvodvik, remember him? How do I pronounce? Oh man, he was a hell of a light heavyweight. He's going to find himself against Isaac Rodriguez. Don't know much about him, but just to see him mix it up again in the light heavyweight division is interesting. Terrell Gashaw, a 154-pound fighter, who's going to be seeing if he can still compete with some of these people like Jesus Ramos, who will be on the card later. This young gentleman, Kermel Moton, is so highly regarded by Floyd Mayweather that he wanted a title shot, Mario. You heard about this?
Yeah.
He wants a title shot. Have you seen him or know anything about his background, amateur background?
I know that he works out with Sauce Gardner. I know that he's 19. No, 18. How old is he?
I think he's 18. Yeah.
18. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think he just turned 18 too. I know that his social media is blown up over the last 4 months. If you check the stats on Google, I mean, he's ever since that story came out where Floyd challenged what's his name? Who did he challenge? He told him to fight this kid. Damn it. Who was it? Theshoeshine? Chat, anybody?
Drew, the chat. Come on, guys. Ryan.
But okay, regardless, that was the story, right? He challenged a world titleist, at the top of the division for this kid's pro debut. And so everybody, went crazy about it and it got picked up everywhere. I mean, there were comedy podcasts talking about this stuff. It made the circuit,
before your pro debut, he's getting that kind of exposure. That's exactly what you need. Somebody like Floyd, a mastermind, a genius, really, because I've yet to see his amateur experience, and I'm hyped to see why Floyd had the same feelings about Hitchens, and obviously Hitchens is a technical specialist. Yes. But what he had in Gervonta Tank Davis when he was he had that, and he had that explosiveness, that pay-per-view monster in the making that Tank Davis is. I'd like to see that out of this kid. I hope
that's what Kermel has.
I hope that's him.
From the video, have you seen stuff online with him?
Not anything yet.
Wow. Okay. When you go and you check it out, and obviously it's his Instagram, YouTube, this is stuff they're putting out because they want you to see, but still he looks fairly dynamic. He looks like he's got a little pop. He moves very well. He's fluid. It just seems like the sport of boxing comes fairly natural to somebody his age. And so that's something to always keep your eye out, with development. I mean, it's the same kind of things we saw from Earl Spence as a 16, 17-year-old, same things we saw from Devin Haney. And so, definitely going to keep my eye out on
thank you to our chat. Our homeboy Ryan says it's Lee Wood. Lee Wood.
There you go. Thank
126 pounds. Right. A featherweight. So I'm excited to see that. Chat. Let's see what all the hype is about. The undercard itself, like I said, it's tremendous. There's almost 12 fights, probably starting at 2 or 3 o'clock. I'm sure some of them will be available free on Showtime. They look great, but even the main card, and I want to thank you so much. You did such a great work. I want to thank you for giving us a shout out on this article. I'm just going to point this one out, guys. Go back and read this awesome article before Saturday, written by none other than Mario Munguia here. Jesus Ramos has a massive opportunity September 30th, and you gave a shout out to us, man. I appreciate that very much.
Definitely. It was a great interview, man. You and Dee did a great job.
Appreciate that. I thought he was going to be the co-main. I'm still not disappointed. He's on the pay-per-view himself. That's quite a remarkable achievement against somebody who's already fought that Charlo, which says a lot.
Yes.
And had a brutal fight against the Towering Inferno. And then for the real co-main, Drew, I don't know if you're excited about this one, but Ugas still wants to show he's got a lot left in the tank, and Mario Barrios. This is a pretty good card. Want to know what you guys think about it in the chat as well. We'll start with this Jesus Ramos story, Mario, that you wrote. he's knocking on the door potentially if these belts go by the wayward of a title opportunity here. And what we were really impressed with, I was really impressed with when we interviewed him with D-Style is, Drew, and you heard it too, is he's willing to take on, even if it means he has to go through the towering inferno and do what Brian Mendoza did. He said he's never been afraid of that. He will do that exact thing. He will take on people like Xander Zayas in his career because he knows the importance of the great Mexican-Puerto Rican rivalry, and he acknowledges that could be a future star for Puerto Rico. I mean, he says he's willing to give praise to other great fighters, but also recognize what he needs to do to become a world title challenger or a world champion. So what are your thoughts against him? Because Erickson Lubin's dangerous, depending on what kind of fight Erickson Lubin wants to have. If he obviously the game plan for the Towering Inferno was all wrong. So how do you see this fight playing out? Jesus Ramos and Lubin, who now has 2 losses against very tough opponents, though. One, the former champion.
Listen, I think that this is Ramos's chance to make an impact, to beat a fighter who is, like you said, I mean, he's only got 2 losses, but they're against Mel, the
early in his
quintessential
career, right?
154 pounder, right? And then Sebastian Fundora. So those aren't losses to like snicker at. For Jesus Ramos to be in a position where you're coming off of beating Joey Spencer, where you had very little respect, right? And in that interview, and man, y'all did a really great job in that interview. But in that interview, I remember y'all asking him, basically, like, did he see it as 50-50? Did he see it the way that a lot of other people were trying to push it? Because, Joey Spencer was like I don't want to call him a hype job, but, he was hyped more than he was, showing things in the ring. And so he said it wasn't like he took it personal, but it was like he knew what he was going to bring to this fight, and he knew what Spencer couldn't. And he said the same kinds of things with the Lubin. He acknowledges that he's a great fighter. He acknowledges that he's been one of the, premier fighters at 154. But the momentum that Ramos has coming into this fight, the style that he has coming into this fight, the one thing that seems to have always troubled Lubin is guys throwing punches. You know what I mean? Like, he's in a position where if I think Ramos fights the kind of game plan that we've come to expect from him, right, and pick his moments, I don't think that it'd be smart for him to go and bum rush, a fighter like Erickson Lubin and blow his load within the first, half of the fight. I do think that there are moments and key moments throughout the fight where he needs to turn the gas on and make Lubin uncomfortable. Make him, don't let him get settled. Don't let him get into his groove. But the reason I love this fight so much, it's the same reason I love wrestling, because it's 2 storylines. So often in boxing, we get fights, especially on pay-per-view undercards, where there's showcases. There's one storyline, and it's, will Andy Cruz continue to win? Will Keyshawn Davis continue to win? whoever. But in this particular fight, both guys have so much on the line. For Erickson Lubin, he can't just lose again. Not in this case, and not loss. To Jesus. Exactly. It can't happen, especially with all those belts going away and you not having to go through Mel anymore to get them. That's a big thing. With Ramos, on the other hand, you have a chance to beat a legitimate fighter and put your name in that position so that when 2024 comes knocking and all 4 of those belts are scattered throughout the wayside. I mean, yeah, maybe, Tim Tszyu ends up getting one, but regardless, he said he would fight Tim Tszyu. He told y'all that he would go to Australia and fight him. This guy is not scared of anybody. And if you are a fan of boxing, I'm not saying, you should root for Ramos or anyone, but if you're a fan of boxing, a guy like Ramos winning and being in charge means that we're going to get the fights that we want.
It's definitely going to be exhilarating. There's a lot on the stake, Drew. He just pointed that shit out. Lubin, a 3rd loss, and you know what happens to your career with a 3rd loss like that. It's to the back of the line for you, or potentially just not fighting on PBC at all anymore, finding yourself on the club circuit. For Ramos, there's got to be a little saltiness, right, Drew? The fact that Brian Mendoza, a guy that he beat, that we interviewed him right before that Brian Mendoza fight, he's getting that first crack at Tim Tszyu. And so therefore he said he's willing to fight, he's not going to overlook Lubin, period. But after that, he's willing to fight whoever it is in his way. My question to you, Drew, is Will Ramos do what he says, which is show and display that he has levels above Lubin? Not just Lubin, but that he has levels people haven't seen yet, and he's willing to start showing them in his fights.
He knocks out Lubin inside 6 rounds.
Damn.
He's stopping inside 6. But and I said this already numerous times. He's the future of 154. He's going to be the guy. He's going to be the king of 154. I think he beats Tim Tszyu. I think he stops Tim Tszyu. Let me rephrase that. He stops Tim Tszyu.
Oh, you get just as D-Style comes into the room.
He knocks out the Tyrant Inferno, because the only thing the Tyrant Inferno is now is a bridge you just push down and you walk over.
I won't disagree there. I think the game plan was perfectly executed, and now the blueprint is out there for how to chop down that monstrous tree in Fundora. I think Saturday he's going to have a close fight, guys. I think he's going to have a tough fight, at least, at the very least.
I agree.
Who started that blueprint? Harrison Lubin.
Yeah.
Started it.
He had a lot of success. Despite his face being busted up, Erickson Lubin showed tremendous heart that just... I mean, when you want to talk about a boxer, when you think of Hollywood movies, he showed that kind of heart in that fight. Yes. And that's why I say it's a dangerous fight on Saturday night. I'm, for one, am happy the kid is not going to be overlooking Erickson Lubin.
It could steal the show.
It could steal the show very well. I don't think it's going to be an easy fight. I think he gets that win, and it's going to be a very valuable lesson should he down the line get an opportunity to fight someone like Tim or anybody else at 154. I don't really see anybody as big as a threat as Tim to Jesus over at PBC or in that division. Or Lord only knows, does Terrence campaign at 154? Does he go for titles there? I mean, will he fight young lions like this? I can honestly see Terrence Bud Crawford fighting Tim Tszyu. I think it's a super fight with the international stardom that Tim Tszyu is building upon. That's a great fight, but it
makes a lot of sense.
And Crawford beats him too.
I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. I think if
Drew doesn't need no time to make his picks. He's like, let's get it.
We talked about athletes that just overcome, special athletes, guys that literally could just play multiple sports professionally. We talked about it on our football show. Shout out to D-Star. Our friend D Ware, that I was telling you about, Derek Ware, was signed to play baseball. And not too many guys, Deion Sanders, Bo Sanders, and then little known D Ware was also signed and played Major League Baseball on the minor leagues and football. So there's not too many people who...
I didn't know that.
Yeah, little known fact. And there's just not that many people that could do that kind of stuff.
Head, shoulder, knees, and toes.
Sorry, the co-main event is an interesting one because also it's a crossroads fight to me. Mario Barrios, he had a huge opportunity at fighting Gervonta Tank Davis at 140. He had a minor belt, and Ugas, you find a guy who was also a champion at welterweight. If I don't say, he's been in a major fight against Pacquiao. Two guys who've been in tremendous pay-per-views in a crossroads at the welterweight division. Drew, is Ugas over the hill? He's an older fighter, Cuban. He hasn't taken up a lot of punishment, but from that Salas School of Boxing in Las Vegas. How do you see this playing out?
I think Ugas beats Barrios. I'll be honest with you, Barrios, I don't know how the hell he got to where he was at to fight Tank Davis and everything, because I think he's an average fighter, Barrios. I think Ugas beats him. It's probably going to be a decision, because I don't think Ugas possesses the power to knock out Barrios.
Or vice versa.
Thurman couldn't knock him out. Ugas ain't knocking him out. And I don't think Barrios, I think Barrios was put in that situation knowing that he could beat Tank, that he can lose, and he does not have a chin, and he can be hurt easily, and he'll walk into something. And I think he's that guy you just put in there if you're looking for a showcase or something. And this is, to me, like more of a showcase for Ugas. I think Ugas beats him 8-4, probably. But, is it a crossroads for Barrios? No, because Barrios is still going to get fights. if you need someone to get beat up on, you call for Mario Barrios.
I mean, Crossroads though at that level, like Mario Barrios can't just lose. I agree with you. You're absolutely right, Drew. He'll get other fights, but what does that mean? Like he's going to get other fights as a gatekeeper. He's going to get other fights as a B-side who's, going to fight, guys that are like 11-0 coming up that they're just looking to make a name off of. Like, This is Mario Barrios. This is his fight. If he can win this fight and solidify himself, dude, this is a really quick shot to a significant fight at welterweight. And this is a significant fight at welterweight. Let's be honest, for Mario Barrios, right? I definitely think I would call this a crossroads fight. Absolutely. At Ugas's age, with the inactivity that we've seen, not just over the last few years, throughout his career, really, it's hard for me to say which guy's going to show up. Now, I do agree that I think it could be a knockout. I do, because look, I know Mario well enough to know that he's going to come to win. He's going to try. He made an effort with Tank, and he looked good in that fight too.
He did. I had him winning the better half of the first.
Yeah, we can't disacknowledge, what he was able to do in that fight. Now, I think what he's going to get against Ugas is a little different, but if he can disrupt and be a disruptor and take Ugas off his game plan, like who knows what happens. But ultimately, I do see Mario maybe falling behind after the later half of the fight, and maybe getting overly aggressive, or maybe, trying to shoot like a Hail Mary and getting caught. I don't think Ugas has power to stop him, like you said, Theshoeshine, but we all know, just as Drew said earlier in the show, the punch that you don't see coming hurts the most.
That's
and
true.
Anybody can knock you out. Any pro can get a knockout if the fighter they're punching doesn't exceed the punch coming. You know what I'm saying? So that I could see. I can't go against Mario Barrios though, man. San
Texas,
Antonio,
local
Corpus, like
there you go.
Come on, man, 2 hours away. I got to pick my boy. Mario's coming home with it.
We all got to agree on this. The winner of this fight's being set up to get brutally knocked out by a bigger fight.
Potentially. I mean, I could see the winner of this fight getting, potentially being an opponent to somebody like Boots if he sticks around at PBC. Not that they're all by Al Heyman, but I would want to see Boots take on the very best of PBC if that's who they're going to have him fight.
They might milk Mario a little more though, right?
Before they throw him the boots.
Yeah, honestly, I think so, because like you get a guy listen, if you can get a strap on Mario Barrios at any point, you're going to fill out, a San Antonio arena. You're going to fill out a Corpus arena, the Valley, whatever, so you can milk a Mario Barrios, run.
You brought that up. Top Rank did very well on that Mexican Independence Day weekend. Was that Corpus Christi?
Yeah, it was.
And Corpus, you were there. Yeah. You were there.
I was.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I saw. I could feel the electricity in that arena from across the television. I could feel it. It was hype. Exactly. So
especially for Emiliano Vargas, that kid is a star in the making.
Wow, and that's in Texas too, huh? You can kind of fight as a native Las Vegas, a kid born and raised in Las Vegas.
There you go.
It'll be interesting to see Emiliano Vargas where he'll develop his larger fan base. For you to say already, you could feel something happening there. Well, I'm not surprised at all. I'm not surprised with his father's name. Guys, in this fight, I don't really have a say. I think it really is 50-50. I'm going to sit back and enjoy this fight. I can't say one way or the other. The strong defensive counterpunching of Ugas, the Cuban school, the come-forward Mexican style of Mario Barrios, but also can box and has a fairly good ring IQ. This one's 50-50 for me. What I think is going to happen is going to go the distance, like you guys said, which is going to give a lot of time and anticipation for the main event, where we could see a late start for the Canelo fight.
Great point.
One that at least we won't be waiting like we did with Kovalev, waiting for the UFC to get done, right? Let's get into that main event because everybody's waiting. It's already pretty late. I appreciate everybody. Don't forget to hit the like if you're here. And guys, the phone line is open. If you want to be bold and give your prediction right here on the Theshoeshine, go ahead and use the phone line and let us know who you are putting your money on. This is crazy. To be honest, I never thought when they brought up Charlo with the discussion of another 3-fight deal that it was going to be this Charlo, Jermell, the smaller, quote unquote, not the middleweight champion of the world, moving up to 168 seems so natural. What does that say about Jermel's confidence, having 4 titles, willing to jump 2 weight classes? We've seen it before with people like Amir Khan move up 2 weight classes to fight Canelo. We've seen people be brave like that. We've seen Canelo go up 2 weight classes to fight Kovalev, or was it 2 or 3? I mean, just crazy. So for Jermel to do it says a lot about his character, about a lot about his legacy, what he's willing to put. But one that I think, for one, is a no-lose situation for Jermel. Just no way. I mean, how do you lose? You lose to the face of boxing as the undisputed 154-pound champion. Everybody's going to say, well, you knew that was going to happen, right? But what about if he wins? Unbelievable history, right? This is a potential first in history that someone's undisputed in 2 weight classes, Mario?
Yeah. Yeah, this would be phenomenal. I mean, first of all, look, for everybody who at first said, oh, this is a Canelo picking on a smaller weight guy and, dragging a guy up and all this stuff. Look, the picture of all those belts on stage was worth the price alone. What they managed to be able to capture in that picture that Theshoeshine has pulled up just now, that
like
is the kind of stuff that tickles the very fight bone of every commercial fight fan in this country, around the world, internationally, because this is the thing. It doesn't matter if you speak Spanish, if you speak English, if you speak Chinese, it does not matter. Everybody understands the language of gold. And what they have around them is a novel of gold. Okay. They have a smorgasbord of gold in that picture. And that represents something in the 4-belt era, the difficulty of being able to not just win these belts, but keep them when you have sanctioning bodies at every single turn trying to take them from you for more money and more money and more money. And then now ultimately we're left with 2 guys, right? Now, I would have rather the fight been at middleweight, right? A little more fair, super middleweight guy, titleist, junior middleweight. That would have been better. But the Puebla belt up to... They're just throwing in belts now, man. They're just throwing in belts.
9 belts. He has the potential. Drew, Jermel Charlo has the potential to walk away with 9 titles. I just mentioned this belt is lit for anybody that recognizes ancient
straps.
Mexican art here, mestizo. This is like a mestizo belt here. The Puebla belt. He could potentially walk away with 9 belts. Well, or Canelo can walk away with the 4 he currently has, and this nice token one here, this beautiful belt. But yeah, Drew, 8 belts on the line here in this picture, and in this picture you clearly see there's no size advantage that Canelo has over this Charlo. Does he have a size advantage, Drew? Is Charlo going to fill out nicely on the scale this Friday or Saturday?
The only thing you gotta worry about with Charlo is his power's gonna come up to 168 with him.
Fair.
That's the main thing. And I don't think it's going to come up with him. I think Canelo's gonna walk him down for about 6 or 7 rounds, beat the balls off him, and stop him in 7. I don't think this I really thought this as somewhat of a cherry pick, because you had a legacy fight at 168, and you chose this. I'm sorry. I'd rather have the legacy fight. I'm about legacy, man. And tell you the truth, you don't improve your legacy at all in this fight. Jermel Charlo does. This does nothing for your legacy. You lose this fight, you blow your legacy downhill, and you're probably done.
Or he's got no option. He's got no option but to win, Drew. He's got no option.
I just don't see how people like this fight more than a Benavidez fight.
I'm not saying you do. Chicano Prophet already saying blah blah blah, Drew.
See, but look,
and
Drew.
People that can say I'm hating in the chat, blow it out your ass. I don't care what you say, because I say what I want, and I'm the one up here. You're the ones in the chat talking.
Mario, we're not getting this fight. Well, we're not even getting the fight on Mexican Independence Day, guys. I don't think this fight is terrible. I don't think it's a bad legacy fight. And what the PBC had to do to get him, just the idea of fighting Benavidez, they had to throw somebody at him and make a
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Theshoeshine, you're 100% right. And that's like the only point I really want to like touch on real quick is that look at what happened when another fighter came over from another rival network to Showtime, Floyd Mayweather. Let's look at that piece of history. Remember that fight deal? Who was the first guy that he fought? Drew, you remember? It was Robert the Ghost Guerrero. Okay. So we're not going to like sit here and say like, there isn't this plan that PBC has. We know the Benavidez fight is going to come. I think this was the perfect first fight because you think about what has Canelo been doing this whole time. He has been gaining fans, right, internationally, but he's been gaining haters specifically. And a lot of those haters come from the PBC fandage. Here comes now Canelo, and he kind of reintroduces himself to that PBC market. Right. And he does it with a guy with Mel. Yeah, he might not get the credit that he would if he beat a Benavidez, but ultimately all these fights are set up to outdo each other. Look what Floyd did. Floyd fought the Ghost, right? He ended up fighting Pacquiao, which is what we all wanted in the first place. He ended up fighting Canelo right before that too, or right after the Ghost fight. Okay, so he went from the Ghost to Canelo to Pacquiao to then Conor McGregor, who you could argue set the precedent for everything that we have now with the YouTube, for better, for worse. But ultimately, he outdid himself every single fight on that contract. Floyd Mayweather did. I have a feeling Canelo is looking to do the exact same thing, to start off with the undisputed versus undisputed and see all that gold. The only way to outdo this fight on Saturday is to fight the guys like Benavidez.
All right. Well, I think very highly that this fight with David Benavidez is going to happen in May of next year. The WBC is going to mandate Canelo, should he retain all his titles, to fight him. And whether or not, no, I actually do believe, Drew, I firmly believe we're going to get that Boo Boo Andrade fight with David Benavidez. And it's just going to set up a super fight. You're going to get two guys coming off some very interesting performances, very dangerous fights.
I'm going to be honest.
Yeah. You think they both pass their tests? Which one?
I don't think that Benavidez fight's going to happen. And I'm going to tell you why. If that Boo Boo fight gets made, I think Demetrius Andrade beats Benavidez.
Well, there's a good argument for that. We'll get to that when the fight gets announced.
I really think Demetrius Andrade beats Benavidez because here's the thing. Caleb Plant caused Benavidez problems. If Caleb Plant had power, that's a totally different fight. And I don't think Benavidez will win that fight if Caleb Plant had power. This guy's a southpaw. He has a little pop to his punches. He can box. Awkward style. It's going to be a lot of problems for Benavidez. Like, they were kind of forced into this. If this fight happens, they were forced into it. Because who else did they have to fight? If you wasn't fighting Andre, are you going to fight Moel? Because you can't go backwards after fighting Caleb Plant. You got to go forward and fight better fighters now. Make your case to why you deserve a Canelo fight and everything. So I think, and the WBC is not going to mandate shit. When was the last time they mandated something? They mandated a mandatory fight. Like, seriously. And I'm not talking about Benavidez versus Plant. That's an interim title. I'm talking about an actual title fight. When was the last time they forced Wilder, when he was had they ever forced Wilder the mandatory defend his belt against their mandatory challenger? No.
Well, you know what? I can remember the WBC mandating Canelo to fight Yildirim, though.
That's what I was going to say.
And he gladly took that one up. He's like, perfect tune-up. Thanks, guys. Sure, I'll fight him. My sparring partner.
Hell yeah. That's hilarious.
Most corrupted sanctioning body in boxing. How the hell did Yildirim become the mandatory when two of the guys on that list he was ranked above both beat him and both KO'd him in Eubank and Durrell?
As much as I want to agree with you that the WBC is the most corrupt, I think the WBA's got it beat. You guys can go read that article about Greg Cohen and how they actually rank fighters, what was discussed in that Greg Cohen lawsuit. I think they are probably, and I have to give props in the grand scheme of things with all the PED bullshit going on this year. At least the WBC tries to do the morally right thing by having a clean boxing program.
That is true.
Well, guys, let's just get to the point. Who is going to win this fight and by what fashion? I'll start with you, Mario.
Listen, I'm going Canelo, and I'm going to go decision. I think it would be foolish to assume that Mel has absolutely no chance. We've seen Mel grow in front of our very eyes, and what he was able to do in the repeat with Castellanos, like those are the types of adjustments that the most elite fighters in the world are capable of making, right? And what he was able to do, yes, maybe not against an elite fighter, but still being able to do that. So I'm not going to overlook Mel in this fight, but essentially what I see coming into this is Canelo's got the big fight experience, right? The lights, the media, the fans, all that, it's not going to be nothing to him. Is it going to be something to Mel? I don't know. I mean, yeah, he's fought on pay-per-view. Yeah, he's had some big fights as far as boxing, but super fights, he's never been there with the Mayweather type. You know what I mean? He's never been. So I don't know. I'm not saying that, Mel shrinks in front of our eyes. All I know is that when we head into that fight, we're not going to be seeing this massive fighter using his weight advantage. Power and the punching, that might come into play, like Drew said. But ultimately, I think we're going to see the best version of Canelo that we've seen in the last few fights, because he has to be. He's had so many people doubt him since the Bivol fight that he has to. Yeah, well, I mean, listen, everybody's been waiting for Canelo to slip up, or his haters at least, let's say that. And he has to know that he is under a microscope, a PBC microscope. And those are the fan base that has said that he's not as good as they say he is, that he would not beat a David Benavidez, that he's ducking Jamal Charlo, that he's, ducking Andre, all the guys that they said he's ducked and hasn't fought and all this shit. He's going in there with it. The one thing that showed me Canelo's coming in here ready was that video where he says, I don't got to get ready. I stay ready, mother F. Like, yo, he said that. Like, why did he make that video? Who was he even talking to? But that, I think, is the kind of mindset that Canelo's had going into this whole camp. This is me being able to shut up every single one of you on Twitter, every single one of you on Instagram that don't fight, that don't fucking go to the gym, that don't work as hard as he does, to go in there and say, oh, I'm ducking this guy, I'm ducking that guy, when all your favorite fighters aren't even fighting each other. I'm going to come in and beat all of them. And it starts with Mel on Saturday.
Great. Drew, decision, KO. How do you see this fight playing out?
Damn.
Well, why don't you throw in pay-per-view? Throw in your pay-per-view sales prediction while you're at it.
Damn. Mario's telling us, probably telling half the world that Canelo's telling us that we're fat and we're lazy and we don't want to work out. But okay.
And me too. It's okay. Me too.
But here's the thing. I don't. Jamil Charlo likes to bang. I'm sorry. He likes to bang. I don't think the power's going to come up with him. I think this is going to be a 7-round stoppage for Canelo Alvarez. Like, I just don't think the power's going to be up there. I think Canelo's not going to feel this dude's power. Once he sees he has no power up here and it can hurt him, it's over. And it's only a matter of time. I think it's a 7-round stoppage, Canelo Alvarez. And we got to hope that he gets mandated to fight the winner of Boo Boo and Benavidez if that fight happens, or he fights that. Because here's the thing. This is likely probably going to be the last contract he signs, Canelo. Because if you look at it, the longer he waits to fight Benavidez, the more of a chance of a disadvantage he'll be at. If he fights him now or early next year, I think he beats Benavidez. If he waits to the end of next year, it's more 50-50. But I just just don't see Jermell Charlo being a challenge. And if he somewhat is a challenge to Canelo, or he somewhat pulls the upset and beats Canelo, we're going to see the retirement of Canelo Alvarez, because I don't think he comes back from this loss. But this fight, this thing, I think it does $800K.
Okay, that's pretty respectable. Not on Mexican Independence Day weekend, a couple of weeks past that mark. I could see this fight going exactly the way both of you guys predicted. I have to give credit to Charlo. What he did in the rematch against Castaño showed that high level of IQ that I came to expect after his one sole loss against Harrison. The way he came back to knock out Harrison was special. And then to do it again in this hotly contested first fight he had with Castaño and to shut him out in the second one. That Charlo can make the distance and go the distance with Canelo Alvarez on Saturday. The performance that Canelo gave us against John Ryder in his hometown matched up with the best of Charlo is going to result in a 12-round fight going to the scorecards, one which I handily give Canelo that odds. Obviously, he's the face of boxing. He's going to get the nod in Las Vegas. He should get the nod in Las Vegas. You got to take it away from him. However, I can also see Jermell Charlo getting caught up in his own ego and standing his ground and going toe-to-toe with Canelo. One that's going to be a very dangerous proposition. One that will result in him getting countered and getting stopped somewhere after the 6th round. I see those two scenarios entirely plausible. And I think that it's most likely plausible that Charlo, because of the magnitude of this huge pay-per-view and being on that stage, like you said, Mario, this is nothing to Canelo. He's done this repeatedly. He's gone to Texas and sold out in 73,000 seats. You don't get bigger than that. And for Charlo, I can't even recount him headlining a fight in Las Vegas. Really, I can't even recount that. I think he's going to get sucked into the pressure of performing and going mano a mano and seeing, really who has the biggest cojones in that ring on Saturday night, and one that will most likely result in a stoppage. It's most likely going to result in a stoppage. But hey, if I find out on, we all come back next Monday or Sunday, we all on the podcast, and he survives and goes 12 rounds, John Ryder did it. It's entirely plausible.
Dave.
Yeah.
By the end of the night, he's gonna wish he would have got bitch slapped by Caleb Plant instead of getting hit by Canelo.
Wasn't that his other brother? Yeah, I appreciate Mario so much for coming. The first time it was great. We've had your colleague Gail on here. She's always a hit. Let us know about where we could find your writings other than NewYorkFights.com.
Yeah, right now writing for NewYorkFights.com. Still write for TBV every once in a while. Actually, have a project I'm working on with them. And at Infighting Pod, please subscribe. The podcast comes out tomorrow. I had to record it tonight. So yeah, man, come through. Going live almost every day. Do podcasts on Wednesday and wrestling on Fridays. So. Oh,
that's awesome. See, Drew and I just started to venture out into our football talk, which is this Wednesday. But make sure you guys go and subscribe to Infighting Pod. Let's get him to the next level. Let's get our show up to the next level. Huge fight week. Drew, any final words for this week? Huge week in boxing.
Let's just see. Well, everybody knows what's going to happen. Who's going to win.
All right. Well, that being said, I got an Eagles fan and I got a Dallas Cowboys fan. I think you guys are playing each other.
Now we're playing Washington next week. We're gonna get the Commanders whoop their ass too, like the Bills did.
Yeah, we're here for a pie bet, $50 bet,
hey,
$20 bet.
I'll take a pie bet. I'll come back on the week that it happens, and we'll make it official.
Well, I appreciate it, Mario. Yeah, we'll get in contact with you to see if Drew changes his mind on a wager. This is Dave in the 7-2, Theshoeshine. You guys have a blessed Canelo fight week. Like I said, Wednesday we're doing a football show late in the evening, and I'll try to go down to the MGM and live stream. And hopefully them hackers haven't stolen all them Wi-Fi passwords. I'm actually legitimately concerned, Mario, for all the boxing media, because so many of them use public Wi-Fi when you're down there to, hey, get the scoop up as fast as possible. I'm genuinely concerned about the safety of that. But I'm looking forward to seeing everybody in the boxing media. Peace out, everybody. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks, Mario. Appreciate you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.